Let's break down Redfall's various visual options on current-gen consoles. Series X gets a quality and a performance mode, targeting 30 FPS and 60 FPS respectively. Curiously, there's very little difference between the two options. All basic visual settings are more or less a match, including performance sapping settings like shadow resolution, foliage density, and draw distance. They look remarkably similar at a glance. They also look very similar even when you zoom in closely, because both modes resolve a good-looking 4K image. You do see a bit more image breakup in the performance mode, but we see a clear, high-detail 4K image in both that maximizes the pixel grid of an Ultra HD display. The key here comes down to upsampling. The performance mode renders at 1080p, with some form of upsampling taking it to an effective 3840 by 2160 resolution, while the quality mode continues to render at a full 4K, but both manage to project a convincing 4K image. When we bring in the PC version and compare it to the Series X performance mode, the aliasing patterns at similar internal resolutions using FSR2 closely resemble the Series X code, so I suspect that FSR2 is the upsampling solution of choice here. So what about Series S? We see a range of cutbacks here relative to the Series X code, some carried over from version 1.0 and some tweaked since that release. The shadows now enjoy the new high-res close-range shadow cascade, for instance, and shadows up close very closely resemble the Series X in resolution. But the shadows transition to a low-res cascade closer to the camera than Series X and exhibit much worse pop in at range, which sometimes looks a bit off-putting. Foliage is thinned out a bit too, with sparser tufts of grass at the side of the road here, though it's not hugely impactful when actually playing. Volumetric lighting is lower resolution. Textures are also lower res, just like at launch, with comically poor results in certain objects. One welcome and unexpected change is that the Series S version now enjoys screen space reflections, just like Series X, which were absent from version 1.0 on Series S. The two Series S modes are a near perfect match for each other in terms of visual settings. Just like on Series X, there's really nothing to separate them when we stack them up side by side. Resolution is about 972p in the game's quality mode, with the performance mode rendering at 720p, again likely using FSR2 to take it to 1440p or thereabouts. Dynamic resolution could be in play here, but I didn't notice it in my testing. The performance mode has a bit more image breakup, but is otherwise a match in terms of image quality, and both modes produce a credible 1440p class image at a reasonable distance. If we bring Series X back in, it does have a clear edge in image detail, though I think both consoles produce good-looking imagery for 4K displays. Performance in the updated version of Redfall is mostly quite good, with some caveats. The quality mode on both consoles now operates at a locked 30 FPS, with no framerate issues as far as I can tell. It's a big improvement from the launch release, which suffered from frame time hiccups during open world traversal, and could exhibit some issues with a screen full of alpha. Even though it might not seem impressive at first glance, Redfall has clearly seen some CPU optimization work, which produces a very stable experience. This applies to both single-player and co-op gameplay, which I captured with the help of these patrons from the Digital Foundry Supporter Program, as Redfall doesn't actually have any matchmaking capabilities whatsoever. The performance modes actually manage to hit 60 FPS quite consistently, which is a bit of a surprise. Most of the time, you're getting a flat 60 FPS readout with no fluctuations at all. Traversal stutter does reappear here, though in less pronounced form than on launch release. Usually there's a short pocket of time that contains some 33 millisecond frames, and then the game returns to a flat frame timeline. I also noticed a couple of dips in combat during multiplayer play, though I suspect these may be CPU related as well. It's not perfect, but clearly the game is much more friendly to the Xbox's Zen 2 CPUs than it was at launch, and I think it's a satisfactory turnout on the whole. The motion blur also looks great in both the quality and performance modes, and can be adjusted in intensity depending on player preference, though I personally liked the default high setting. So what's going on under the hood here? Well, Alex captured some PC footage using version 1.2 and compared it up against version 1.0, and found that the updated PC code runs roughly 50% faster when CPU limited on a Core i9-12900K. That's a pretty huge improvement, though the code does still exhibit notable traversal stutter in the exact same places along this run. There are some oddities with the PC code in particular though, like a missing shadow here, much more aggressive shadow pop-in here, and the absence of some volumetric lighting. This could be related to the specific weather conditions or could be evidence of certain settings tweaks, but there's little evidence of these specific issues on consoles.